DacRyvius versus Sintolol.
We are back with some more Hearthstone action for you guys. It is going to be the Group A decider. And that, you may have forgotten, because it was a couple of days ago, but Sintolol is going to be playing against DacRyvius now. Ryvius just had a dicey matchup, but managed to get the win overall.
Yeah, it was a mixed bag, I think, from both sides in that matchup. Definitely the one where the casters, the people, the onlookers, some of the pro players are reviewing definitely had the most questions about some of the play, but that can happen. And when your opponent starts playing strangely, it's very easy to get dragged down into that. We'll see if Ryvius can tidy it up for a strong competitor in Sintolol.
We are going to see right now as we welcome our first player onto the stage. Is the small break going to do wonders for him? It's Sintolol.
Sinto, of course, the king of the grinders. Last call competitor in 2017. Looking to make it back to a second world championship.
And his opponent, representing Korea and looking to move forward through the bracket, it's DacRyvius.
Speaking of last call, DacRyvius in prime position alongside fellow competitor Tyler for that APAC last call spot.
It's the 2018 HCT fall season, and things are booming. From China to South America, from South Korea to Germany, 16 players from 4 regions all over the world have emerged with hopes of seizing the throne and taking the fall championship crown. In the end, only 4 will advance to the World Championship and their chance at Hearthstone history. Which player will be the last left standing? Nudge yourself closer to the fire, my friends. The 2018 HCT Fall Championship rolls on.
We are ready to go and just get straight into it. And Raven, of course, joining me is Sottle for this series. It's going to be Sintolol versus DacRyvius. And let's just, like I said, let's just get right in. Who are you liking in this one, Sol?
It's a real close one. The lineups are very evenly matched. You can see that with if there was a certain ban coming out, we could have ended up with a mirrored series, but the difference in those Druid decks is what's caused the discrepancy in bans. Taunt Druid, generally the Druid deck you want to be bringing to snipe other Druids first and foremost. So DacRyvius giving that the respect it deserves, banning it out. Sintolol with the perhaps slightly more favored lineup pre-ban gets to take a more shot in the dark ban with the Shadowwalk Charm.
Right, and both players we've seen taking this approach of just the odd rogue approach, I'm going to call it, of building just relatively strong lineup, even lock, Druid of some kind late game, and then just putting that odd rogue in there along with a Shadowwalk, and we'll see how it plays out, because I expect this lineup to do maybe a little bit better than it has been doing, but one of these guys is going to have to win this match. That's just the way Hearthstone works.
Yeah, this lineup is going to trend towards 50-50 win rate after after this series, because there has to be a winner and a loser, but yeah, the odd rogue inclusion in what is otherwise a very anti-control lineup is interesting. We talked about it yesterday, and it's just the idea that, you know, Odd Rogue is a very good deck at competing against the kind of aggro lineup that would otherwise snipe your lineup, right? Particularly for the lineups that have Death Rattle Hunter in them as well, which these don't. That's where the Odd Rogue really comes in, replacing the Quest Rogue, and does a lot of work in my mind. But no surprise to see Odd Rogue coming into these players' lineups as well.
So what surprises me the most is, like, well, I'm pretty sure Ryvius doesn't really practice with the German team. Do you know what I mean? They've come to these very similar conclusions through not practicing or, you know, playing or planning together. So it's something that, you know, is a pretty high-level strategy when we get into it. But Sintolol starting with that coin far side just to get things moving as quickly as possible. Now getting that 2 mana Ziliax, which is going to be reasonably flexible, but there are definitely more powerful cards you could have got from that one. Swipe Face. It's available for DacRyvius. May well just be a hero power.
100% mana efficiency.
You do have to consider these plays.
No, you really don't know.
I think Ryvius is just considering more about what his next couple of turns is going to look like with a much healthier Nourish into potentially Malfurion with an Alexstrasza follow-up. Looks a little bit better than this pretty poor turn 4.
Yeah, Sinto just has to get some card draw rolling here. He's gone coin 3 into 3, which is, you know, relatively common with Shadowwalk Shaman, because so many of the card draw options in the early game do cost 3 mana. When you're up against a slow deck that's kind of equally doing nothing in the early game, spending your turn 2 and turn 3, getting some kind of cycle going is a pretty common way to approach the matchup. No different here from Sinto, going with the Farsight into the Acolyte of Pain. But now his development just stalls a little bit, as does his card draw, with this Acolyte not being able to draw any cards on this turn.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird, isn't it? Because in some situations, you could just play Ziliax and just say, Well, okay, I've just got 3-2 Divine Shield, Rush, Taunt.
Some situations, like this one, Raven.
Yep. I was just remembering all the keywords. Lifesteal, that's the one I think I was forgetting. So you can just leave it on the board, but if you're planning to potentially try and work in a Volcano next turn, just to cycle, then Zilliax kind of messes with that a little bit as well. So it just feels like a weird and uncomfortable play. That's the correct term.
See this Giggling Inventor tech in hand, which the German players in this tournament have brought. Moyen is responsible for the lineup via all accounts, and Sintolol kind of just piggybacked on it. But we listened to Moyen's explanation of Giggling Inventor in Shadow Walk Shaman, and he raised some good points, but he did mention specifically that Spreading Plague Druids are the one time where it's really just a bad time to be having Giggling Inventor in your Shadow Walk Shaman.
It was almost exactly that, wasn't it? Like, that's the matchup you would just hold it in.
Yeah.
You don't really plan on ever trying to play it to win the game. Now, Sintolol has 2, though, so outside of just more or less passing again, it really is quite the awkward turn. Funnily enough, lines up pretty well versus these Poisonous Spiders, since Divine Shield is a hell of a thing.
Sure does. Ryvius stalling here for the meantime as well. Both stalling on executing his turn and just stalling with strong options. Zilliax is in play, which is one of the scariest cards to come down post Alexstrasza. Of course, the other one being Healing Rain, so he might decide to just fire it off here, having no action otherwise, but
I think I like the card draw.
Yeah, it does seem like a bit of a risk with all of the bounce back ability that Shaman does have to refill that health total.
Yeah, I think in this matchup, because of the Healing Rains and the potential for just more than 2 for a start as well, means that you don't really want to just say, oh, well, Alex, and I'll hope I can find damage, because the damage isn't there for Ryvius yet.
Right.
Nourish is going to help, though, next turn. If he doesn't get into that UI, he can actually just draw 3 with it instead. As Sintolol, although not, I would say, overly behind, is also just hasn't really drawn anything that is actually a Shudderwock combo right now, apart from a Glacial Shard. So Ryvius definitely has time.
Technically, Giggling Inventor is a Shudderwock combo.
The Shudderwock combo, I think, is, sorry, the. There we go, more emphasis required.
Right. This is why I was thinking about this Alex sooner rather than later, is because with the Starfall in hand as it was, and with swipes available, facing down Giggling Inventor board as he has been on the last 2 turns, there is like a decent chance that Sintolol, in the absence of a Hex, would just say, yeah, this Alex won't connect with my face through all these Divine Shield taunts, and Ryvius might actually be able to make some magic happen and get 8 damage out of this Alex's body, which is always just a huge bonus when you're playing an Alexstrasza deck, if it connects.
It definitely is, and I think now with Swipe, Hero Power, Moonfire, he could, if he so chooses, try and get through this in that way and be kind of okay with the trade-off of using all these spells and not having a Malygos combo, because you kind of push in the damage regardless.
Yeah.
Sinto can just play Glacial Shard, though.
Right. There's Glacial Shard, there's Hex, there's all sorts of counterplay available for this. Crucially here, the Zola is on side as well that can keep locking it out, but I do expect to see Sintolol throw this 2-1 into the 8-8 here, just to play around Swipe a little bit and just start putting the necessary damage onto it. Worst case scenario, you know, a Spreading Plague comes down here, there's too much health in play for Volcano to guaranteed kill the Alexstrasza, and then there's still just an 8 attack minion on board threatening you, so do like chipping away on it where you can.
No, I think Ryvius not really under any threat, because yes, as I mentioned, Glacial Shards and Giggling Inventors, but there's been no grumble, there's been no big power plays from Sinto, which means he has time to draw these cards and then work out exactly what he wants to do here, because he just needs to get to that Malygos, get to that Floop, get to the Florist as well, and just try and make something big happen now that Alexstrasza is out the window. And also Twig not being equipped means that you can't really rely on that as something that's going to win you the game anytime soon.
Engaging TC-130 mental dislocator.
Ryvius really looks like he is almost in excruciating levels of stress over every single card he's choosing to play at these turns. I think we've seen today especially, this is the day where people get eliminated, right? The stress just hit the players very, very hard.
Sintolol with the world's most rapid Hagatha.
Pretty straightforward to me. Sintolol not a player known to mess about too often.
Yeah, and now Ryvius is looking like he's just struggling a little bit. Like you said, no petal, no florist in sight yet, no twig in sight yet. Alexstrasza already used, and his opponent's back up at 32, which is out of range of even the full discounted Malagos combo with a double swipe, double moonfire.
I'm sorry I keep just making noises as you're talking,
fine.
but the level of card draw is kind of insane actually from Rivius. I think Druid just draws its cards the fastest out of any deck. But ticking the boxes, you say he doesn't really have much, but now Floop, now the Florist, double swipe, double moonfire. It really is just the Malagos right now to unlock the true potential of what he can do.
Farsight off the Bewitch is very nice for Sinto here. Yes, the Hex that he picked up isn't hugely consequential in this situation, but it's just one card deeper in his deck that he really wants to be. His hand had really started to splutter there in terms of cycling and snowballing through to those last few cards where potentially a Shudderwock or a Grumble could be buried, as we have seen in previous series where it was just Grumble Zola last 2 cards in the deck.
It really is funny, isn't it, this matchup where it's almost like both players are saying, okay, who has better card draw, me or you? Let's go.
Spoilers, it's the Druid.
Yes, every single time.
Engaging TC-130 into dislocator.
Rivius now, because of that Florist, this is one of the trickier parts of playing the deck nowadays in its current build, I feel, is negotiating that Florist to actually just hit the thing you want it to at the right time, because even right now, if Florist was played next turn and hits the Tyrant, I'll call it, even though it's Floop, it means that would still mess with your Malagos turn, because it resets to 4 mana after you play it. Or after you play another minion, sorry.
And Keleseth is actually just a big whiff for Sinto right now. He needs card draw. This hand is just doing absolutely nothing. This is a hand that just waits around to die to Malagos Druid at the moment. The Might does give him some potential gas, and that's not a bad elemental to pick up as far as elementals go.
Can hex something twice.
I believe he does still have a natural Farsight remaining in his deck, because one of them was generated by Bewitch that he's played this game.
And this is tricky now.
Tangled web.
What does Rivius even do at this point? There's not really any cards you want to play this to.
No.
It's like, but you kind of need to do something.
Right.
I don't think pass is good enough.
One of the weird byproducts here is that Sinto's card draw starved hand has prevented him from falling into the Sinto trap of filling your hand up against the naturalized deck, or should we just call it the German trap these days? The versus Saiyan trap.
Okay, that feels safer.
Okay. Essentially, lots of German players have had their Shudderwocks burned in high-profile opportunities, and DacRyvius, with nothing much better to do and 2 naturalizes in hand, might be eyeing up that kind of play if Sinto had 1 or 2 more cards in hand right now.
Yeah.
And the thing that people miss, like, everyone almost always wants to burn cards against Shudderwock Shaman, but a lot of time you need at least 1 naturalize for Grumble, because it just puts an insane clock on you otherwise. Like, they don't even need to Shudderwock you if you just can't kill this 7/7/8/8, whatever it ends up being on the board. But still, double naturalize would have ended up being very tempting there if Sinto had 8 or 9 cards in it.
I think the double's the key as well for me. There's one thing of, okay, I burned 1 to 2 cards with a naturalize.
Right.
Burning 2 to 3 to 3 to 4 potentially is significantly better and has a much higher percent chance to get the job done that you actually wanted it to in the first place.
Uh-oh.
Spirit Echo's a thing.
I'm just saying, Raven. There's 6 cards in hand.
You are not just saying so.
That's very true, I'm not, in many regards. There's 6 cards in hand, 3 Spirit Echoed minions on board that can be killed, and 2 naturalizers in hand. We could have had some fun.
Look at this as well. What do you think about this for business Floop play? Because now it just has to be petal into a straight-up Malagos.
Yeah, it's the same. We had this discussion, I think, in a previous series where, like, he wants to petal his Malagos at some point. So that Tyrant, or that Floop, in whatever form it ends up being, does need to come out so that it doesn't end up being discounted, because a discount on a Flute minion is just almost entirely wasted, because the mana cost does just then reset after
just
it
have to hope
changes.
for the 50-50, hit the Malagos, then Malagos into Floop.
Right,
But
yeah.
that's multiple big questions.
Right.
Into dislocator.
And when Rivius just already has the 30 built up in hand, like, all he has to do is these 2 points of chip damage to get rid of the Hagatha armor, and then he's in business, right? So I don't think there's any reason to really try and get that super high roll on the 50-50.
Well, especially because he doesn't even have it. right?
Yeah.
He's got to wait to get that Malagos as well. It's not as if he has it in hand, and it's, you know, a risk you could then discuss in a little bit more detail because it's something he could have actually done. Now, Lightning Storm is going to help clear out these minions, and I wonder if there was ever, after seeing the flute, a consideration for just trying to use one of these other cards in hand, like the Crushing Hands or the Hex. Oh, there we go.
He's going to zap his own Keleseth, get a card out of hand. Again, I think this is Sinto with a bit of PTSD, but it's more than that. I think it's actually a smart play. Understand 6 cards in hand, 2 death rattles that return minions to his hand on board. He would have had 7 in hand. He would have had an extra 2/2 on board that's vulnerable to Spreading Plague number 2.
Right.
Like, it's a weird situation, but sometimes in Hearthstone, less cards in hand and less minions on your own board is actually a good thing for you.
You learn that very quickly when you giant on 3 against a druid and they just snap the naturalize. You're like, oh, well, that's a problem. Fairly large tempo swing. But now Ryvius just has the same problem. Second UI. Doesn't really want to play any of these cards right now.
No. It's so crazy that he's like 5 draws ahead of Sinto without having played a UI this game.
He doubled. Oh no, he played 1 Nourish for draw, right?
And Paths.
And the Ferocious Howl, too.
Yeah.
Death is eternal. My
This is truly a hard play.
Right.
Because this just, I guess you just pass again.
I mean,
it feels so annoying and
Right.
probably very frustrating for Ryvius right now. Because if that was just a card he could play, it's infinitely better than a UI number 2, right?
It's such a tough spot for Ryvius because he's sight unseen on this hand, right? Like, we can look at this hand and say there's no Grumble in there, there's no Shudderwock in there, he's missing Saronite Chain Gangs. Ryvius doesn't have any of that information. For all he knows, Sinto's really only looking for like maybe 1 more piece, right? Like, he's only looking for the Grumble. But from Ryvius's perspective, he has to try and like work out if at any point like a swipe Moonfire naturalize play is worth going for to put these 2 Spirit Echo minions back in hand and then burn up to 3 or 4 cards off the top from Sinto. We can see that as actually like statistically has lots of good outcomes for it, but that's because we can see what's remaining in Sinto's deck. Ryvius can't.
What Ryvius can see now is he's just really dead next turn if he doesn't do something, and long gone are the days where Ryvius can just choose to not play stuff. There has to be a committal somewhere, whether it's those naturalizes, whether it's just trying to swipe away this board. But if he swipes away the board, how does Ryvius even win? Because these UIs are becoming very quickly, if not already, unplayable in the game. Never mind the turn,
Exactly.
because he will kill himself through the fatigue. Gonna choose the naturalize now. I think that's the right play. You need to leave something that can win you the game.
Yeah, that's the other point of like using the damage removal spells to take care of the Spirit Echo.
I see who's behind those signs as well.
Yeah. Bunch of freaking trolls, honestly. Oh, never mind!
It happened!
Don't hide now, own it! Hold up those signs!
No,
You brought them!
Whoever was holding, don't. Walk away.
Bathe in that man's misery! Don't try and back out of it now! That's your fault, Muzzy. I hope you know that.
We saw you.
Oh my god.
Should we just watch the rest of the game? I don't know if I can cast this off.
Look at Sinto's face! This has got so ridiculous now that even the guy that just got his Shudderwock burned finds it funny.
I think it's laugh or cry for Sinto, and he's choosing the laugh option right now. He has got Ryvius under a lot of pressure, though. Minion pressure, so it's not all bad. It's just pretty bad.
I must decide.
Yeah, there was the point I was kind of getting to before we got distracted by signs and burning claws. It's... If he went for the swipe play, he might burn the Shudderwock, but then you just end up in this position with like 2 limp decks that didn't really do anything against each other. And he's so far ahead in fatigue that he'd probably end up losing that anyway, right? Like, he was behind on pressure and he would be committing all of his burn damage.
There's the goose. Not going to be enough, though, because Ryvius just has to actually survive this turn.
Yeah.
And the biggest part now is he knows Shudderwock is gone. But he also knows his opponent still has... Look at Sinto's face. It's just cracking me up, honestly. He knows Shudderwock is gone, so the plan can change to a certain extent because you've been given a different timer
Yes.
on the game, I'll say, because he's still under a lot of pressure, but the Shudder Walk doesn't just lose you the game.
Right.
But now, Ryvius has to very quickly do some, you know, mental gymnastics and work out, can he actually win if he stabilizes this turn? Like you were mentioning, is that something he can do? The Druid Hero Power is a hell of a thing.
Yeah, and the problem with like clearing this board is that you give your opponent a life drinker back that deals additional damage. I guess you can kill the shard first, which then fills the hand to 10, and they don't get the life drinker back.
Death is eternal.
Does that even help you that much, though?
How are you killing the shard first? Oh, just swipe the shard? Right.
Yeah. Oof. I know. Oof. Well, no, you could Moonfire the shard, swipe something else, and then,
okay,
then finish off the life drinker.
I am on board with that one a bit more. So when you swipe the shard,
or this, yeah, double swipe on 2 different targets, then killing the shard and leaving the life drinker alive completely is actually another good way of doing it. Ryvius is fast approaching the point where he really doesn't have much playable left in his deck.
right?
He has a 4/4 and a 4/12. 2 cards that maybe in some random world he can use to force a draw at the end of the game if it gets to that point in the ultimate infestations. But even that is massively optimistic. Whereas Sintolol just has a pile of minions that he can keep pressuring with still.
Can he Glacial Shard, Electra, Eureka? And get 2 Grumbles on the board? With 1 still in hand.
Ooh, I like that.
Me too. That's just some big dudes.
That is.
And also empties the hand to a certain extent because you get rid of the Eureka. So not perfect, but... Oh, do the Electra. That's sick, though.
Lightning can strike twice.
Within a Grumble. Still, a lot of pressure. And this also means Sintolol can hold Electra for that healing range for a Volcano if, I don't know, the game bugs and there's tons of Druid minions from somewhere. I'm not sure anymore, but...
Right.
Yeah, I think Sintolol might just be feeling the fatigue security in the form of that healing rain plus the Electra.
Yeah, with double Hex in hand, he's kind of chilling for removal, but he knows that Moonfires and so on are still available to Ryvius, so the security of just a full heal, Arena Jackson effect, whenever he wants it.
I'm just wondering the security of just 2 Grumbles on the board,
I'm kind of with you.
because the board looks the same except for 2 7/7.
Yeah.
And you still have Grumble in hand. It's crazy. I cannot add up the power of all these cards and get a win for Ryvius here in game 1, so I'm going to have to confess I tried, and I failed.
I think that little rock back in the chair from Ryvius means that he might have just reached the same conclusion. Yeah, looks like those Moonfires are going in the face. Ryvius spots lethal. Moonfire ultimate infestation.
On his own base.
Yeah.
Managed taking 1 player out of the game. It was himself. Sintolol takes the win, even with the Shudder Walk burn. It was just too little too late for DacRyvius. Sinto goes 1-0 up and 1 more step closer, sticking around in this tournament. Oof, indeed.
I don't know what it is, but for some reason, when I get in this building and have to cast Shudder Walk games, they're just always nonsense.
Most Shudder Walk games, even outside of this building, are nonsense, but yes, maybe especially so in here.
Yeah.
It's cursed, or blessed, depending on who you are. The audience probably love it.
Remember Viper just coined Shudder Walk on 8? That was great.
Good times.
Yeah.
Good times. Yeah. Ryvius is going 0-1 down. And again, just look, I do feel the fact that Sintolol laughed off the Shudder Walk and was just smirking to himself is a very important factor in this. I'm being genuinely serious as well. It's a very important factor in this series because Ryvius looks clearly stressed, rightfully so. You know, clearly trying to be hyper-focused and just everything on the game. Sintolol just kind of giggling to himself and just having a good time. And that might be the difference in this series, to be completely honest.
I mean, his Shudder Walk was just going to summon a bunch of Annoytrons anyway. Who cares, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Didn't matter at all. But
No,
what
but I
does...
think he understood the position he was in, right? He was a card ahead in fatigue.
Yes.
So if it all, like, and both neutralizers were gone, obviously. So if it all just solved out, he was probably going to win anyway. He had the health advantage. He still had healing rains available. And he had the pressure advantage. He had a sticky board. He had minions in hand. So I think like he knew, even with the Shutterwalk gone, he had a good game plan to still come out on top.
Yeah, and the game plan did work, and Sintolol is 1-0 up versus Rivius. Plenty more games this series to go, though. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back with the rest of the series. We are back at the Hearthstone Fall Championships here, and we have Sintolol versus DacRyvius. Sintolol currently 1-0 up and got a win with that. I was going to call it a Shutterwalk Shaman, but we'll just stick with Shaman with the way that game went, as there was a certain lack of Shutterwalk.
Shaman, like a normal person?
Nope.
Okay.
Where would all my jokes come from, Sol?
I don't know. World's 500 worst dag jokes, like usual.
They're Lorinda's.
Ah, yeah, fair.
Can't steal his jokes either. Let's get into game number 2. As I said, Sintolol leading the match now on his odd rogue, and Rivius going for that even warlock. While the players get ready, I mentioned a little bit earlier, just before we cut actually, that Sintolol seems very relaxed and just very happy to play even when things have been going wrong, like last game. And he actually did talk to us about this.
None
So,
will survive.
He looks a little bit more serious now, though.
Were we supposed to hear something?
We were.
I'm glad we didn't, because mulligans are very important, Raven, and I want to talk about them.
How long do you think it was supposed to be?
Sintolol, holding on to the Vicious Fledgling, of course, very important. DacRyvius, not actually sure if he full kept or whether he mulliganed into the Mountain Giant, but Plated Beetle, Sunfury, both useful cards to have in the matchup. Tap Mountain Giant is really not the line to be going with in this matchup, because you do just queue up into Vilespine Slayer a lot of the time and just lose all the tempo that you've lost from tapping away in the early game. So having smaller minions, we saw one of Rosty's pieces where he was talking about the acidic Swampoos into Vulgar Homunculus curve that was played out by Tyler, being very effective in some matchups as well.
Yeah, this is a strong start now, and what is Ryvius going to do here? He drops the Mountain Giant on the 3, does have the Hellfire as a safety net, but this is when you just get that small worry that this could slip away from you by not coining out Hellfire, but of course, you know, that's a big committal to something that might happen instead of getting a guaranteed 8-8 on the board.
This can now end up very messy. +3 health will protect from Spellstones and Hellfires, and he has walls to put in the way with DacRyvius to protect it from the Giant trade.
So plus attack will help versus the Giant as well.
It's true. Spellstone's unbuffed so far, I believe, as well. So +1/+1 might actually just end up doing the same job as +3 health, but just being able to push that extra bit of damage as well.
Right. Do you remember not too long ago when I said we spoke to Sinto about his attitude towards the game right now? Yeah. I remember. Well, now we can hear what he has to say.
So many options.
I'm actually not too concerned about any lineup. I'm just gonna have a fun time and overall decent lineup against the field.
Sinto just concerned about having a fun time. And a small extra point of knowledge, just in case for those people who don't know, the card back he's using is the one from the current World of Warcraft expansion.
Is it? Okay.
So he's going in.
This is my surprised face.
DacRyvius, a nice blocker for this Giant. We do see that there's Hellfire, there's Spellstone, so Ryvius can deal with this Fledgling over the course of multiple turns. But a lot of the time you don't have the multiple turns versus the Fledgling, so it's such a tricky situation to deal with.
Right.
Maybe Spellbreaker's just gonna have to get the job done. Is Shadow Flame too much? Because I love Shadow Flame in even luck. And at this point, I really like it. I would consider it because I just wouldn't. But I think I would get myself into the point where I don't want to lose the game. You know, which is obviously not just the right mindset to get into playing this.
Shadow Flame there removes 1 damage, right? Like you kill the DacRyvius as well. I guess it's relevant against Fungalmancer follow-up because you go down to 1 minion on board instead of 2.
And also that 1 minion is just a 1/1 anyway, so even if it gets buffed, it's not.
Right, but you are also minus an 8/5 and a 4/3 on your side of the board as well. So I think
don't get me wrong.
Spellbreaker just looks a lot stronger than me.
Now there's just
ooh, ouchies.
Okay, Falk, calm down.
That trade.
And for me, though, one of the most fun cards in the game right now is Myra's Unstable Element. The game just goes nutty when it happens. We saw it in the series that Admirable and TJ were casting earlier. We're probably going to see it again as double Vile Spine is not the greatest next turn for Sintolol unless he can pick up a 1-drop. But my point being is the game ends very quickly after that card is played.
Right.
Ryvius, again, just not looking like he's having too much of a good time trying to stave off this odd rogue pressure right now.
That looks like he's having a fine time to me.
If you look at the board, what about the camera?
Ah.
Like, this is what you look like when you're having a great time. I'm worried you don't look like that now. You're having a fun time.
You may have noticed, but I'm actually incapable of processing human emotions, so I'm going purely on the game state.
I don't believe you. I think hatred is one you can process. It's just going to be dagger up and go. No Diamol into a Foul Spine Slayer this turn to open up a bit of a gap. Just going to hold on and try and wait for a bit of a juicier target. I guess as well, this is a little bit off-putting for Ryvius because you've got to think your opponent's just passed on 6 mana for Odd Rogue. What do they have?
Right.
You know, like,
there's basically 2 schools of card that your opponent has here. First are utility cards like Vile Spine Slayer and unplayable cards like Baku, and Myra's in that spot is kind of unplayable. You're not just going to quite like rip it and YOLO it from that point. The other is just like straight damage, right? Like Leroy Cold Blood kind of stuff. And Sinto actually has a mix of both now at this point.
It's kind of a sprinkling of everything. Now these double Sun Fury Protector coming in clutch now, just saying. One thing I do know about Odd Rogue is it plays a pretty straight up game, right? If you've got taunts up, there's SI7 agents that can deal damage to face, right? There's nothing like crazy they can really do. They don't play any cards that say Rogue used to play that steal cards or spells from your opponent's deck. It just doesn't. It does one thing and that thing very, very well, but that thing is very predictable.
Valspine number 2, very nice for Sinto though on that turn, and now Ryvius has got to find a way to answer another board state. No Defile available. Shadow Flame will cost his whole turn. Some Fury on board, not really good enough to get things going. Basically just pass full initiative back to your opponent at that point.
Yeah, I wonder just how good getting this Homunculus down will be. You can trade away the 3-2 with this on Fury.
He's going to Spellbreaker Shadow Flame.
Oh, okay.
This is kind of interesting to me because, you know, based on that read we have from a couple of turns ago of Sinto not doing anything, Baku is like a very possible card that he has in his hand. So you Shadow Flame the whole board, your opponent then plays Baku, and I guess then you have just like Homunculus as a response, but I don't think either of your Spellstones are dealing 7 right now, right? I think you have a 5 and a 3 in hand currently.
No,
but Homunculus Spellstone will do the same.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, it's fine, you have this covered. All right, the Shadow Flame play was legit.
Entering the mind of Sintolol. He just took him through every stage of that play.
Sometimes you just have to talk out loud until you get there. It's the life of a caster.
Myra's only 9 health left for Sinto. He does get a Giggling Inventor that he can stave off some of this aggression with. It's 5 power on the board for Ryvius. But now, Sinto is also taking fatigue. And guess what Rogue also doesn't do that well? Heal.
Yeah.
So Sinto has a fixed amount of time now. I believe that time will not work out very well if Ryvius just slams Gul'dan this turn. So I'll give me the puzzling look. I'm thinking Gul'dan, you've got plenty of armor, you go up to 29. You also have Hellfire and the hero power the next turn with fatigue.
Right. I was just fishing for lethal this turn.
You're so fancy.
Greedy. Ooh. Bone Man. Bone Jack Horseman.
It's just 2 off, right? Oh, no, because he can't defile anyway.
I was going to say. What are you hitting face with, Raven?
The charging Bone Bear? The tap really confused me there in that spot. I feel like Gul'dan makes you just so secure. Not that this is a losing play, don't get me wrong.
Right. I think he just wants to like wipe the board of Fungal Mancer targets, of Cold Blood targets, of just anything that can really present a board. Because if he were to go down there, he doesn't bring back a huge board, right? And then
no, but he sets some lethal next turn.
Yeah, sure. I can see that. Does it set up lethal through like Fungal Mancer Annoyatrons though?
Well, yeah, because you just hero power Hellfire, and then 2 damage from fatigue from 8. At least that adds up to 8 to me. I might be having a crazy day.
Well, I'll tell you what definitely adds up to 8.
8. An 8 attack minion.
4 plus Bone there makes 8, and Ryvius is going to square up the series 1-1. Sinto's hand just pretty much ran out of gas in the mid-game. We saw he basically had to pass a full turn with a double Valspine hand with no targets to throw it at. Ryvius is able to square it up, picking up a win with the even lock.
Yeah, kind of a bit of an unfortunate one, a sticky situation on turn 5 there, because there was the double Valspine and Myra's unstable element, wasn't there? So it was just...
And Baku, I believe.
Yeah, there's just too much big stuff. Where are the 1-drops? The big question, but Ryvius does even it up, and there was a very visible sigh of relief of it's like, okay, 1-1, let's continue.
Yeah. It's one of the big reasons why you even bring Odrogue into a lineup like this, is that you just have a pretty strong matchup against Evenlock in comparison to some of the other things that deck could be. So to then lose that matchup on Ryvius' side is a big throwaway for Sinto, honestly.
Yeah, a little bit frustrating, but Sinto still has Odrogue and Evenlock left of his own. And then there is the Mali Druid and the Odrogue of Ryvius left, if my notes are correct, which they've been known to be now and again. Sinto looking a bit more serious than we saw him earlier, but I think we're just going to go straight into the next game, you know.
You love to see it. Yeah, Odrogue Mali Druid versus Odrogue Evenlock now. It's going to be the Odrogue Mirror.
Okay, so that was a very quick mulligan from Sinto, but I'm just interested, why throw away Mukla? Because Moogle is not a card you often see in Odd Rogue, although we've seen a few players bring it to recent tournaments.
Yeah.
But it's a powerful 3-drop, which is often a great card in Odd Rogue if you think of Hench Clan, if you think of Fledgling. But why was the Moogle discarded there for Sinto?
I mean, it doesn't interact particularly well with the other 3-drops in the deck when they're being combined with the dagger anyway. Plus, you just give your opponent like a pile of combo activators and a pile of cheap things that they can use to leverage tempo against you, which is one of the ways you succeed in the matchup. I've definitely seen people keep it, though, just to try and dominate with a big pile of stats, because having a power 3-drop is actually very important in the mirror in the first place.
It's like just attack with a Hench Clan twice, right?
Yeah.
Sinto does have quite a reactive hand here in the form of the deckhand, even the SI7 agent. But that Tar Creeper on both sides of the board is going to be the main point of contention, I would say, for this early game for both players. They have to find the best way to get through a Tar Creeper and not have it just obliterate their board. Maybe it's now just considering, do I want to just play a Firefly into a dagger? Probably not. So then do I want to coin both out? Maybe to have a minion at the end of the next turn. Or do I just pass?
Yeah.
Weird turn. Can coin out Tar Creeper next turn anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot to consider, because in this matchup you do want to overload your opponent's dagger in a lot of spots, by which I mean, like, don't just play one minion, let them hit it, play one minion, let them hit it. That way you never get anything on the board. You can wait one turn, play 2 minions at the same time, and then they can only hit one of them, and then you have a minion to leverage the turn after that. The problem is, if you do that from turn 1 to turn 2, then on turn 2 you're skipping your dagger, which then allows the opponent to get that momentum against you, because you don't have your dagger equipped to attack.
Right.
And there's actually merit in the matchup as well to just like playing things to chew through your opponent's dagger charges, because the like deadly poison player minion turns are some of the swingiest turns that you can get.
Yep.
And if you chew through your opponent's dagger by making them hit your minions, they don't have that 2 mana spent already to just tempo out a deadly poison plus a 3-drop on turn 4, for example.
Yeah, we also see some level, or quite a big level of discipline from Ryvius that turn, as he almost played the Firefly, pulled it back and let go of the mouse and sat back and went, you know what, hang on, that was nearly an instant play. Let me just think about this. And coin Tar Creeper is going to be answered by Tar Creeper. Now they both stare menacingly at each other with zero intention of actually doing any relevant damage. Get the swing from Sinto to say, right, I need to kill this at some point.
Yeah. That counter Tar Creeper is just about the worst thing that Ryvius could have seen here. If a Fledgling came down, if a Hench Clan Thug came down, he was ready to go with Dagger Deckhand. I think that was a kind of situation he was looking for, but the counter Tar Creeper has just really thrown a spanner in the works of him make any kind of development here. And it's weird that, he kind of got in his own head with the whole let's not play 1 minion a turn thing, but essentially all he did was just floated a mana on turn 1. It's left him in a position where, he's used the coin, but he hasn't really swung the game that much.
Right. Now I think Ryvius might just have to go 1-1 here and just say, I just need stuff on the board to make my next turns more powerful, and
I like this.
Just has to kind of commit now, just go 1-1 and say, right, I have Deckhand Dagger next turn, if required, along with a Deadly Poison. So the next turn, I think, is important for Ryvius, as he has to push through it. Look at his posture. So I'm casting this game from the cameras at this point.
Ryvius?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not happy, is he?
It's just sit, think about my turn for as long as possible, play the turn, hope the Sinto has a bad turn. It's like, it feels like that's just the thought pattern. All that's going through his head right now is, please don't demolish this turn. Please don't get me. Now, Sinto just considering the merits of getting a Squire on the board versus the deckhand, I think. Because I believe 1-drop SI seems too juicy to pass up.
It's looking that way. There's no Fungalmancer in hand, so like Argent Squire being a stickier minion with the Divine Shield isn't a whole lot of upside versus the immediacy of the deckhand denying options from your opponent as well, because your opponent is trying to snowball a wide board into a Fungalmancer here at some point. Argent Squire, while you don't have Blood Knight in hand, is also a risk if your opponent does have the Blood Knight.
You know, the Squire didn't take the the hit on the Tar Creeper, which would have been a clean number, but would have greatly lowered the health on the Tar Creeper. So now, what Sintolol is trying to say is just you need all 3 minions plus dagger minimum to get through this Tar Creeper.
Yeah.
If you have something else that's fancier, great, whatever. But it's not looking too great because the important thing as well is Ryvius doesn't have dagger equipped, and this is what you were talking about earlier of, well, you don't often have 2 mana to just play in these early scrambly board states.
Well, also, from Sinto's side of the play he just made, because Ryvius didn't play a Firefly on turn 1 and then get it daggered by one of Sintolol's dagger charges, Sintolol still had that dagger charge left at that turn, so he was able to kill the Tar Creeper. If he didn't have that, he would have had to have used the deckhand instead, except guess what? He couldn't because he didn't have a dagger charge equipped in the first place.
Plays do matter.
I mean, I'm not even saying it's wrong, it's just Odd Rogue mirrors confuse me, dude.
Here comes Blood Knight onto the Giggling. That is going to be a very large minion that Sinto just gives a huff. He's just not really prepared to deal with right now. He can kill it, but it involves sending Leroy straight into the 9/9.
Yep. It's good restraint from Ryvius as well, holding on to his Blood Knight for the huge blowout. Didn't just want a 6/6, he wanted the full giggling destruction here with his 9/9.
Oh, is Sinto bailing?
Sinto's just, just racing.
Fine. This is a nice pickup here. He still has a second deckhand and Leroy next turn if so desired. This gets the dagger up to bank 4 damage over the course of 2 turns. Now Ryvius must know what the plan is right now for Sinto. The 9/9 to trade with a 3/3.
I mean, that's just a fat W if you're Sinto. If the play you made on the previous turn made your opponent respect your board that hard.
What? Okay.
Oh my, the cold blood draw. Sinto with the disrespect on the 9/9. Ryvius blinks first and trades, and then it doesn't matter because Sinto rips the cold blood off the top, finds himself his win in what looked like a dire position. And that is the difference between one game from facing elimination and one game from facing top 8.
It really is, and we saw then just a perfect description of just what happens when you say, actually, you make this decision instead, and you say, I'm just going to go face, because I'm going to make you think I can push, and obviously we could see, without the draw, Sinto had a lot of damage from hand. But the fact that the trade happened with a 9/9 blows my mind, to be honest. So I'm not saying it was wrong, but in those situations, at least personally, I lean towards, oh, okay, let's go then, because I have a 9/9 you quite clearly cannot kill, because if Sinto had a Vile Spine, he would have just Vile Spined it.
Yeah,
right? You know what I mean? It just would have been killed.
I think the respect trade there comes from like just being dead to Leroy and much smaller amounts of damage if he didn't trade. So I think he does end up doing it as fun as it is to make fun of a 9/9 trading into a 3/3 or whatever it ended up being. I think the talking point is Sinto spotting that setting up that actually did force the trade, right? Like it was enough respect to say, hey, your 9/9 isn't going to challenge my whole board single-handedly. And if there's one thing Sinto knows how to do, it's jam face.
That is very true. Known, at least initially, it's one of the best Pirate Warrior players in the world. Times have moved on, but Sinto definitely hasn't as he enjoys going face at the moment. He's currently 1 game away from qualifying through. Let's see if he can do it after this.
The Hearthstone Fall Championship rolls on.
Overall, I think Europe is the best region. This lineup might not be as strong as the lineup at the Summer Championships. I've usually never been afraid to qualify for playoffs. It's just a normal thing. I've never missed one when I tried, so I'm not gonna start missing them right now. I like the grinding aspect in the beginning.
Been grinding for so long, and almost to the point where in Hearthstone where people use grinder as a pejorative connotation.
Okay, for playoffs you have to grind a bunch, and most of the time you have to get points from outside of ladder. I kind of expected people to play a lot of anti-aggro in my group because they expect me to bring aggro, so I didn't want to play aggro. Makes sense. There's not too crazy stuff happening in the competitive scene. Everyone wants to play it safe. You rarely see that those crazy lineups have a huge impact and are meta breaking. But the most interesting cards you can probably put in your deck right now is Giggling Inventor, Blood Knight, and Mossy Horror. Just attack cards that are very strong right now. I like Fletchlings. Fletchlings are fun in Odd Rogue, yeah. I have Blood Knight in my lineup as well, actually. Yeah. Might do some work. We'll see.
안녕하세요. 저는 한국의 딱 팀의 리바이어스 심다솔이라고 합니다. 그러니까 노력을 하면은 결국 배신하지 않는다? 그 시즌 플레이오프 진출보다는 이제 라스트 콜을 노리고 점수를 최대한 많이 얻기 위해서 하다 보니까 어떻게 시즌 챔피언십 진출하게 된 것 같아요. 대세가 되는 메타를 파악하고 그것을 카운터 치는 덱 구성 위주로 하는 거를 즐겨 하는데요. 예를 들면은 토큰 드루가 굉장히 많이 거라고 예상을 해서 토큰 드루를 카운터 치는 구성을 해서 이제 좋은 성적을 냈고, 다만 이번에는 그래도 그 상대가 정해져 있는 16강 리그이기 때문에 그런 식으로 하는 거는 조금 좋은 성적을 내지 못할 것 같아서 이번에는 강하고 좋은 덱 4개를 들고 왔습니다.
And finally got through. He lost to Tyler in the winners match, but he made it through a pan in a very close series of his own. But the Druid didn't let him down, and he's there. Sotol, be happy.
Oh, I am, Ray.
그 리치왕, 원래 짝수응방에 거의 필수적으로 들어가는 리치왕을 카드를 뺐어요. 이제 리치왕을 빼고 다른 좋은 카드를 넣었기 때문에 이제 그게 커스텀이라고 하면 커스텀이라고 할 수 있을 것 같습니다. 약간의 운과 저가 실수하지만 않는다면은 모든 덱 상대로 그렇게 불리한 건 없는 것 같아요. 그러니까 아시아 태평양 쪽에서 쟁쟁한 선수들이 많이 올라왔기 때문에 이번 시즌에는 지난 시즌과는 좀 다르게 아시아 퍼시픽 쪽에서 좀 많이 올라갈 것 같습니다. 16명 중에 4명을 뽑으라고 하면은 아무래도 저스트 세이안, 그리고 타일러, 그리고 신토롤, 그리고 저 이렇게 4명을 뽑고 싶네요. 계속 노력하고 있고 그를 통해 좀 더 좋은 결과를 얻을 수 있을 거라고 생각하고 있습니다.
We are back and ready to continue this series between Sintolol and DacRyvius. Sinto currently 2-1 up. Is he going to get it done, Sotol?
Who knows? If he is, that Blood Knight play, or the ignoring of the Blood Knight play, could end up being very telling. It was interesting to see in that little media package we just watched. We said, yeah, I've got Blood Knights in my decks as well. They might end up doing some work. Well, they did do some work for him, but not in the manner I'm sure he expected. The Blood Knight being on board for the opponent, nuking his Giggling Inventor. He gives it the old disrespect, and he puts himself in a position now where he just has to win with his even lock, which has a pretty 50-50 matchup against the remaining Mali Druid from DacRyvius, and an unfavorable against the Odd Rogue. But with 2 bites of the cherry, Sintolol still a big favorite to get through this.
You're definitely going to be feeling good. Ryvius back on the Odd Rogue. And outside of that Hench clan, not really the hand you're after.
No.
Against the Even Warlock. Don't give the Even Lock time because they have bigger stuff than you.
Oh, that's huge as well. Homunculus on 2 can buff the Spellstone, which means the Spellstone will be able to challenge a buffed
Also
Hench
just
Clan slug when it comes down. Oh. That's right, actually, yeah. Ooze or Homunculus are both just both setups for this Hench Clan Thug on turn 3 to be able to deal with it.
Which one's Sinto going to go for? Kind of an interesting choice. It's not like in some matchups where you're like, oh, which weapon am I going to use? You know which weapon you're going to use. The rogue weapon that they equip all the time. It's just when you want to remove the weapon from play. I struggle to think of a reason not to play it right now, though.
You're a role player. What's it called? The base hero power is called Wicked Knife, right? Does the upgraded one have a different name?
Really Wicked Knife.
Wow, do you actually not know? I'm so happy if you don't know.
Poison daggers.
Does it? That's great. Oh, debated. Come
you weren't
on.
looking at me when you came up on screen.
I'm so upset.
Be happy.
Okay.
This is looking really nice for Sinto right now, as far as I'm concerned, at least. He has the double Vulgar Homunculus, which not only is great minions to roadblock DacRyvius' opening out, but also this Spellstone's just going to heal 7, deal 7, which is huge. There's a Hellfire if the board gets too wide. There's a Hooked Reaver. There's a Blood Reaver. Well, okay, but not in his hand. There's a Hooked Reaver. if he gets too low and wants to put up another taunt wall. Sintol's hand is ticking all the boxes for me, Sol.
And it was Ryvius just then who had to laugh to prevent himself from crying. He kind of rocked back in his chair, saw the double homunculus, kind of figures out what that means in terms of there's probably a spellstone in hand. If my opponent's just dropping both their homunculi.
Coining one out when there was no real need to.
Right.
And I'm with Ryvius on this one. This one hurts my soul, but you do have to rip and then actually just start killing these homunculi.
Trade out respect? Yeah, sure.
I mean, why not, right? Sintol's almost playing this game like by numbers at this point. You can see the game before him based on what hand he's got.
Yeah, the Giggling Inventor coming down was a little bit obnoxious until he tapped into the Defile.
All part of the plan.
I was about to say giggling into Fungalmancer can present a problem for him here. He does have the Hellfire, but if Ryvius was able to like retain a Divine Shield while progressing through, then maybe Sinto would have just been on the back foot a little bit too much, especially because he played out his cards so aggressively. He was just a little bit low on options, but picking up the Defile now gives him so much more flexibility. Is he high enough with a 7 health Spellstone in hand? He can just kind of disrespect the Fungalmancer and deal with it afterwards.
Oh, that's what I'm sat thinking about right now. Because next turn, are you that bothered about, oh no, I can't play Gen Greymane on 6? You know, it's not like a power play. But if he does clear it, then Gen challenges off pretty much anything Ryvius can play. But then I feel you're always just a turn behind, right?
Yeah.
Just gonna go for it.
Tempo out of 2-3 here, or does it value it too much as a wall later on?
Hold.
Yes. Almost lets the rope decide for him, but now finally Ryvius out of options. I think he just knows this is getting spellstoned, but he just feels like he's okay with it. And now with the Cold Blood drawn, at least he has like a 1-2 punch, right? Like he can drop a 1-drop here with the Firefly, and then he's pretty confident. I'm pretty confident that Ryvius is pretty confident that he's getting spellstoned this turn. But he then at least holds out hope that he's able to Cold Blood this 1-2 and start pressuring through again on the next turn.
I'm not confident that's wrong. So can push with the Cold Blood. It's still Leroy, so maybe he can basically just do what he had done to him not too long ago.
Yeah.
And just try and just insta-kill him out of nowhere. But like I said, that Spellstone just already is a problem. Nothing too fancy coming out from Sinto. Taps into the second Hellfire, which means that even with Fungalmancer shenanigans, often 2 Hellfires get the job done versus Oddrogue.
Right.
Which means that there is, again, an additional layer of safety net for him to be able to clear off some of this board that can appear this turn from Ryvius. And then Sintol just, if not, has Lich King, has a Dread Inferno, has the Hooked Reaver if he gets pushed enough, as well as tapping every turn on top of that.
So Flame LE, Fungal, Cold Blood go. You've seen a Spellstone. That's when the held card in the mulligan since the beginning. You've seen a Defile, and you're putting Cold Blood on a 4 health minion at that point, which is resistant to Hellfire. Yeah,
you just need to start cashing in these cards for damage right now. I don't think you can mess around too much with trying, well, what are you trying to set up, right?
Yep.
Just trade your cards for guaranteed damage like this Cold Blood hit now for 7. Push 2 with the dagger, can't 3 dagger. So Ryvius just has to plan that out a little bit for next turn. But for now, there's even worst case SI7 Agent and Bile Spine next turn to take down something a little bit awkward.
And that's about all that Sinto has in terms of counterplay, is just put Sun Fury on a thing and just hope that it's good enough, and it really isn't in this position.
Nope. This is really nice as well because it's not as if it's just outside of range of tap Reaver.
Yeah.
Which is pretty sick, actually, considering that was just a strong play anyway. He attacked with everything he could, and it put him to 18, not 17.
Yeah, that's all he's got. So he's just making a 4-9 taunt with the Sun Fury Protector, but the Vile Spine here is going to come through.
It's about to get Pac-Man.
Ooh! 10, 12. He'd have to play it first, right? Yeah, he would. 10, 12, 14, 16, right? Is that just lethal? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because he can Aeropower.
Mm-hmm.
I had my head locked in the SI7 Agent mana cost. So I was thinking of, oh wait, you didn't have the spare mana boom.
Hello, am I crazy?
Nope, you're not. Looks good to me.
Ryvius?
But does he see it?
Sir?
Famous Hearthstone line. He has lethal, but does he see it? I will be honest, it can be easy to kind of tunnel vision on other things.
Step one,
done.
step one, step
Last
two,
done.
step two.
Trade with the 2-3.
Ship it all downtown. You know how it works.
Yep. Ryvius just gonna count again. This is tournament life on the line. I do not begrudge anyone taking an extra few seconds to make sure it is lethal, because if you threw that game, then you are throwing away your tournament chances. And Ryvius, again, relieved, pumped, all coming down to the final game in this series now.
I'm not sure if that's relief or if that's wake up Ryvius. You should have seen that 30 seconds ago. It was a little bit of, you know, patting himself, trying to focus up on the game. I don't know whether he was just taking his time, double checking or triple checking, or whether he saw it late. But either way, he has looked very stressed throughout this whole series.
He definitely has, but I do think it's important, at least for himself, to recognize that he did see it and he did get there and he did win. So although he's been looking a little bit stressed out, he only has to get through one more game to move on. But I will say, Zinto did look a little bit frustrated at the end there, but that's often what happens when you kind of just get burst down out of nowhere.
Right.
The back-to-back Cold Bloods really having a huge impact on the game, as it was so much extra damage for so little mana.
Yeah, I think we do actually have to give a bit of credit to Ryvius as well, because I think he identified what the double homunculi play meant, right? And then he dodged his Hench Clan Thug, up until the time where he's like, you know what, if you're going to Spellstone this, fine, I have a plan B.
Pretty bad turn,
I have a plan B, which is this Cold Blood. So he waited until, again, he could kind of play the double threats to drop that down. I think if he'd have just dropped the Hench Clan Thug into the Spellstone early, that game was just over, and Sinto would have run away with it, because he could have just started developing threats and curved into Genjamin Greymane, and the game would have been over. What? What's his name?
It's just not, though.
Is his full and proper title?
Yes, Law Master Subtle.
Exactly.
Of course. Another double homunculus opening with double Twilight Drake as well for Sintolol. But what does this opening versus Giants have as an impact on this matchup specifically, Sol?
I mean, it polarizes the draw less, right? Like if you just go tap Giant into another huge threat, then they just have to have the naturalizers, and if they do, you're sad, and if they don't, you win. If you're just playing Drakes, then the opponent has to flirt with the idea of like, are they baiting me because they want me to naturalize this and then they're going to play the Giant? Or is this actually the biggest threat they have, in which case should I just naturalize it anyway? That all ends up being a bit redundant in this spot because Ryvius doesn't have the naturalizers available to him.
Right, Sintolol did get the 6th tap there though, as tap into Spellstone, play Homunculus on 3, and he did get the Spellstone buffed. Straight now into a Giant with a tap of course.
Oh, he taps!
This means he gets a little bit more punished by naturalize, but exactly. Sintolol's just like, you know what, if you naturalize, then I just have way more stuff to just keep dumping on the board. Maybe it's the speed of play seems to pick a little bit in these early terms of this game. Sintolol not messing about either. Right, yep. I like this. Hit base with an 8-8. Not much feels quite as good in Hearthstone as that.
Even lock aggro deck confirmed.
Yep. Now though, Ryvius does have some power plays of his own. A Nourish along with the Arcane Tyrant. And then there is UI, Spellstone, Spreading Plague. There's a lot of powerful stuff in Ryvius' hand. It's just how he uses it to negate this high aggression right now.
Yeah, does any of that powerful stuff kill an 8-8 right now?
This turn, Nourish into draw cards, coin naturalize. So maybe.
Yes.
So no, it doesn't. No, so.
I wonder.
Can Ryvius take 12 here and win this game? I guess that's the pertinent question that you have to ask yourself if you're Ryvius, right?
Give me a second.
All right, you get working on that.
Time waits for no
Like, it's a
one.
terrifying prospect, but if there's one class that can do it, it's Druid. They have so much ability to just not take damage for the rest of the game once they
the
get
spreading
plagued
plague
and
gets
armor
him
go.
there, because Rivius is not playing a Mossy Horror
Right.
in his even luck. Which means there's no just, okay, I'd lose this game if you have this card.
Rivius decides no. He's going to go out with the Spreading Plague now.
Okay.
Does allow him to get the Arcane Tyrant on board to challenge this. But it is going to slow him down just that little bit, because the board is almost certainly resetting back to a very similar position that he was in at the start of this turn. And then he's just going to be faced with the same decision, right? Like, do I have to Nourish?
The ever so frustrating thing about Spreading Plague is the health on those minions. Very
You
annoying
don't
to deal
say.
with. Very, very annoying to
You
deal
know what,
with.
Raven?
It
You're
never
right.
adds up.
If they were 1/1s, it wouldn't be as good a card.
I didn't say that. It's true, but I didn't say that. Is Geist's ability to remove the more frustrating parts of Rivius's Druid deck just worth plopping on the board now?
It's definitely
Because-
a high impact card in the matchup.
Right, Spellstones go, Naturalizers go. You're like, well, how are you killing this 4/10 now?
Right.
You just can't. It's a reasonable sized minion itself as well. It's not exactly awkward shaped, and it just goes wide enough onto the board. I don't know. For me, I'd remove 4 cards from my opponent's deck. Mr. Lol disagrees.
Interesting. So this protects the giant on board from the trade from the 4/4. He could have also gone Shroom Brewer, which protects it from that same trade. Like, heal the giant back up to 8 with the Shroom Brewer, which protects it from the same trade and protects it from swipe. Or alternatively, you could have just protected it from Naturalize, which you know he doesn't have, but he can draw, and upgraded Spellstones by using the Skulking Geist. So there were multiple different plays to try and keep your giant alive on board there, which is Sintolol's kind of plan A in this position.
Yeah, and I think the biggest sell there was he gets a 4/10 taunt versus a 4/4 or
Yeah,
something else that the
that's fair.
Tyrant cannot kill.
Right.
So if he went for the Shroom Brewer, well, the Tyrant can still kill the Shroom Brewer or kill the Giant off with a swipe anyway at that point. So the taunts really do help this out. And the fact there's just 2 4/9, 4/10 on the board, those are problematic on their own right now.
Rivius looks up to the heavens. He is not a happy boy. He's dead to Hellfire in this position.
It's time for tap Hellfire. Is there a particular reason for Sinto not to tap here? He knows his opponent doesn't have Naturalize. Maybe that's why he didn't play the Geist, actually. Naturalize would have been played, so he just said, he's not going to draw it. It's fine. Oh, nearly Hellfire.
Yeah, now it's Geist time.
Yep. And this mainly because Sintolol is getting so close to just killing Rivius. Suddenly the Spellstones feel more impactful. The Naturalize is even more impactful now, because it might be, along with, say, a Spreading Plague, the only thing that can keep him up.
Right, I was gonna say, like, Geisting there is kind of odd because, oh my god, it actually paid out. Like, the drawing a Naturalize or a Spellstone there from your opponent, right? You know that they've drawn a lot of cards, but still, it's likely based on their play that Spellstones and Naturalizers are still in their deck because they haven't had them in their opening 4 or 5 cards. If they drew a Spellstone or a Naturalize that turn, it's not good enough, right? They're dead. They can't just Spellstone and Naturalize a couple of things and live. They need to draw Spreading Plague number 2. It's the only card that keeps them alive. So, do you Geist? Because you're actually just thinning their deck to draw Spreading Plague.
Give me a minute.
Okay.
Maybe not. I think what Sintolol might have been doing there is making the most awkward minion to deal with as wide as possible to make Bone Mail land. So even if multiple cards get removed, if there's, I don't know, Nourish into Naturalize something, it still doesn't quite add up from a 3 health total. If Malfurion was on the board, maybe we can talk, but yeah, I'd have to agree actually. Maybe the Geist was just surplus to requirements at this point, and maybe, as you said, quite detrimental actually.
So now Spellbreaker can take care of 1, Spellstone can take care of 1, but then again, the pesky little 1/5s mean that each one's eating 2 attacks here anyway. Still can't get through and connect to face. Rivius is dead to Hellfire for turn number 2.
possibility.
They could still tap.
Sinto can go fishing. Giant burst tap for
He's
the
tapped.
Hellfire. Oh, hello.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's all right.
Quick maths.
Well, your soul.
Really quick maths.
So he only gets to 3 if he plays Defile just straight now, and that means he can only force it into 1 if he just puts the 2-2 in first. But I don't think he can get through them all anyway, because they still require the attacks to finish off, right?
Yeah, I didn't see it.
He can't get to Can he get to 5 if he goes in there?
I didn't see it. Time limit's gone, so I'm not going to cheat anymore. I'm willing to hold my hands up and say if there was lethal there, I would have made the same play as Sinto, because I ran out of time as well.
Suddenly, though, not that I'm saying Ryvius is in a good spot.
I wonder.
He has a very tiny amount of wiggle room.
It's like, there's like
tiny.
50-50 of stats on the other side of the board.
Very tiny amount of wiggle room.
Yeah.
Still no naturalize. It's a lot of armor, though. There's the goose.
Draw almost feels like a concede at this point.
Yeah, I don't know
double
what it's
draw.
gonna be.
Double draw is definitely a concession from DacRyvius, and Sintolol, the World of Warcraft warrior, has found his way through to our top 8. Sorry. I guess you shouldn't use the word warrior in that context, but either way, more importantly, Sintolol has found his way into another top 8, looking for a return to the World Championship, which would be an incredible achievement for him, especially doing it this time through a championship event.
He is, yeah. You can see how Group A is now played out in its finality. Bloody Face with some amazing play earlier in the week getting through, but Sintolol coming up as the runner-up. And because we are nice to you guys, we can spoiler a little something that Sintolol will go on to face Just Saiyan in his later match, and that is going to be a pretty big deal in a match I definitely want to watch. But let's hear less from us and more from Sinto. Cora, how's it going?
All right, before we unpack that piece of information, which I was unaware of, Sinto, we have a little surprise for you. So let's go ahead and roll the clip. Spoiler alert, it's your Shutterwalk getting burned. I'm sure everybody's really going to enjoy seeing that again.
I'm going to choose the naturalize now. I think that's the right play. You need to leave something that can win you the game.
Yeah, that's the other point of like using the damage removal spells to take care of the spirit.
I see who's behind those signs as well.
Yeah. Bunch of freaking trolls, honestly. Never mind!
It happened!
Don't hide now, own it! Hold up those signs! You brought them!
Whoever was holding, don't. Walk away.
Bathe in that man's misery. Don't try and back out of it now.
So were you actually aware that there were 3 folks out in the audience holding up consecutive signs that said, "Don't burn Shutterwalk"? No. And then as soon as the camera panned to that, camera went full on you, Shutterwalk burned. It didn't even matter. It did not even matter, because even without the Shutterwalk and your Shutterwalk Shaman, you still got there. What's going through your mind in that moment in time? And at what point do we just stop bringing Shutterwalk Shaman to the tournament?
Yeah, after I've played a little bit of Shudder now, I'm considering to just cut it, leave the rest, just cut Shudder. So it seems to work out. Like, don't need it.
Have you heard of Ike Shaman, or Good Shaman, as the people call it, because Ike tells them to?
Nope, never heard.
Interesting. Interesting. All right, so now we can unpack the information that Raven just told us. You are moving on to the quarterfinals, so congratulations, Sinto. But that means you're going to be playing against Just Saiyan. I know a good pal of yours. Hey, pre-confetti. We're celebrating. Great. How are you feeling with that knowledge in mind, knowing that you're going to have to play against Just Saiyan, and one of you will be going to the World Championships?
I'm pretty sure the script is not favoring me, so I might lose this one. Very likely, but that's fine. I can't beat the script. Nobody can beat the script. Saiyan is going to win on the whole thing, and he's going to win Worlds and the next Worlds and
the Worlds after that. Yeah. I mean, did you expect to make it to this point anyway? And while we're here, why don't you maybe give a little shout out to Moyen for helping a little bit?
Yeah, shout out that he let me steal his lineup. That's pretty cool. The field is alright, so I didn't expect to easily walk through anything. It was 2-1. Yeah, top 8. It's only top 8. It's like,
It's only top 8 at a seasonal championship. I mean, it's not like he's been to Worlds before or anything. You still have a chance. That match is going to be happening tomorrow. Sintolol versus Just Sayin, and I know that's going to be one that I'm really excited for. Congratulations, Sinto. You think the script is already written, but I know 99% sure that it's not. So, you know what? You've got fans out there who are rooting for you, I'm sure. And Germany is absolutely a force to be reckoned with in competitive Hearthstone right now. So let's go ahead and throw it back to Raven and Sottle and find out who is going to be advancing to the quarterfinals next.
Of course, the one remaining thing in the script that Sinto isn't mentioning is, of course, he's playing Saiyan next, which means he will, of course, burn his Shudderwock again, because Saiyan is the master of doing that.
Yeah, I want to see now Sinto try and make it difficult for his opponents to burn his Shudderwock. If he just keeps it in his hand or something, just doesn't mulligan.
No, he just plays every card in his hand, sits there with 0 cards in hand the whole game. He's like, all right, burn it now.
And then it happens somehow, I'm sure it will. But that was a really cool match to watch, actually. A lot of crazy moments. Shout out to Sinto again for making his way through, even though he may not have expected it of himself. We've got another match coming right up. It's going to be Moyen versus Sai Miao. And one's going to be a rematch, and that one's going to be Kibler and Frodance.